Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylee. Welcome. Hello, everyone. Keshikoton sunak kenapka. Joseph Harker lechina homano de quatonashi quetan qualishipichik al and chatla. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Joseph Harker, and I am from the Pueblo of Zuni. My clans are Badger and Child of a Crow, and I am a proud member of the New Mexico Indigenous Youth Council. The Indigenous Youth Council of New Mexico is comprised of representatives from the 19 pueblos of New Mexico, the Navajo Nation, Mescalero Apache Tribe, Jicarilla Apache Nation, and urban Indian communities. Today's topic for our webinar is learning your body, what biofeedback is and why we should pay attention to it. This is the second part of a 4-part series. Through this health and wellness series webinar, which started last week, Wednesday, we are focusing on our physical and mental health, which is focused on practical tools and education. The Youth Council has been working over the past 2 years to address issues of importance to Native voice. The resounding theme of youth response has been mental health related. We have written a report and recommendations to the state and tribal leaders to consider to promote youth wellness. The IYC has developed and identified 4 priorities areas under the holistics view of health and well-being that include the physical well-being, mental being, the social and emotional being, and the spiritual and cultural being. Our goal is to inspire ideas and fulfill recommendations laid out in our IYC report, which you can find at the New Mexico Indian Affairs Department website. Again, we are excited to share with our Indigenous youth communities this webinar series, which takes place every Wednesday through the month of February. For our Indigenous youth, ages 14 through 25, who all attend all 4 sessions, you will be eligible to receive a $50 gift card. Please be sure to sign up in the registration link to be continued as an attendee. To follow along with materials today, please see the following link, which Tony, our co-advisor, will share in the chat. Again, we'd like to introduce our presenter of the Health and Wellness webinar series this month. She is a tribally enrolled member of the Taos and Santa Ana Pueblos of New Mexico. She is also a Chicana and has deep roots in the Spanish peaks of Southern Colorado and Northern New Mexico with an educational background in ethnic studies, experience in financial services, and passion in nutrition and fitness education. She has learned to combine her skill sets in all 3 realms to make relatable and applicable educational content for change. Now I'll turn it over to Tashara. Let us give her a warm welcome to Tashara Salazar.
Thank you, Joseph. That was a very nice intro. Welcome back, everybody. So today's session, like Joseph had introduced, it is about learning what biofeedback is and why it's important. Last week, we covered what food is and basically learning the basics of food, debunking myths about good and bad food. So today, this is really going to be about learning what your body is telling you. And at the end, I'll show you, I'll give you a little bit of a tool to be able to track what your biofeedback is. So let me share my screen. Perfect. So this is learning your body and what biofeedback is and why we should pay attention to it. Pretty much what is biofeedback, right? It is basically a word to reference the physiology of change from a dietary and or training protocol. So that's the technical term of it. But basically biofeedback includes changes in things like hunger, energy, mood, sleep quality, and even sex drive. So all of these biofeedback markers usually precede physical changes. So what that means is when we're paying attention to what's going on with our bodies, we can control more of the outcome of what the physical changes end up being. So while we're looking at our physical well-being, these are absolutely things that I would hope that you start to pay more attention to so that you could find better results in your health and overall performance. So here are some of the biofeedback or biomarkers or body functions that we need to pay attention to. Sleep hours, so the number of hours of sleep you get and the sleep quality. So I'm sure there have been times where we've all had 8 hours in bed, but maybe like 5 hours of actual sleep. Sometimes you're stressed, sometimes things are going on where you just can't go to bed. So that's what I mean by the sleep hours versus sleep quality. The next one is hunger. The third is energy. So how good you feel throughout the day. Digestion, is your stomach hurting? Are you having a hard time with certain foods? The next one would be how much activity you're getting. So are you weight training? Are you getting in your steps per day? Are you rock climbing? Are you running? What type of daily activity are you doing for yourself? Another biofeedback marker would be, oops, I think I duplicated sleep there, sorry. Mood. So are you feeling moody? Are you having any mood swings? Gym performance or soreness. Are you having good workouts? Are you feeling sore afterward? And of course, the other one we included here is libido. So you might be wondering why all of these markers. And really it's because when we're paying attention to each one of these, we are really giving ourselves an opportunity to learn what's going on behind the scenes of our bodies. For example, if you're starting a new workout routine and you're not getting enough nutrition in, you might feel a lack of hunger or you might feel extra hungry. So these things are kind of telling us if we're on the right track or if we need to pay more attention to it. Another thing might be, for example, I included libido here because that tells us about our hormone health. And if we're experiencing any brain fog or a lack of concentration, that might be an indicator to us where we need to put some of our focused efforts in your health. So that is why we include this range here, because when we pay attention to everything, you can usually start to tell where one informs the other and that one informs the other. And then we can actually get on a really good base of where our body should be to perform optimally. So these are the markers here, but just a couple things to keep in mind and an extension of that list there is if our bodies aren't functioning properly, you might see signs of weight gain or stagnant progress, even when we're working out, low energy despite good sleep, stubborn plateaus, even though we're eating less, bad digestion or mood swings, even though we aren't skipping meals. All of the markers are pretty much just telling us what we need to prioritize and focus on. So the markers that I deem the most important, start paying attention to before you start doing, I guess, before you start making any drastic changes in your lifestyle. Number one is sleep. And it seems kind of like, I think when I work with a lot of clients, they're always like, sleep, why do I got to get sleep? And like, it's the boring stuff, right? It's not the exciting things about getting your health in check. But sleep is absolutely number one most essential biomarker that we need to be paying attention to. And of course, the quality sleep. Everything in our lives these days is pretty much a stressor. So we might be training at the gym or training for work. You might be in traffic, family, work life. The stressors that we have in our 2023 year is insane. I mean, even I think being on social media can be a stressor for people. Being on your phone, having your attention pulled a lot of different directions. So sleep is the most important way we can recover and repair what we're doing with our bodies, both physically and mentally. And most importantly, it is the main and primary way in which we can control our cortisol hormone, which is also known as the stress hormone. So before I go to the next slide, who in the Zoom has heard of what cortisol is and what it does? feel free to drop a comment in the chat or shout it on out. Siva. All right, no response.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. Who has heard of what the cortisol hormone is, or the stress hormone? Has anybody here learned about it before? All right, well, no idea. Perfect. So cortisol is our stress hormone. It functions in many, many different ways. So it's pretty much made in our adrenal glands. We call it the stress hormone because it's responsible for fight or flight responses when we're in danger or afraid. It's also responsible for things like helping us wake up in the morning. So, there might be those times where you jerk awake, or your body starts to get warm, or maybe some of us wake up naturally around a certain time. That is your cortisol hormone functioning and waking you up for the day. So it is also responsible for things like your blood sugar levels, regulating your metabolism, reducing inflammation, and aiding with memory invention. So it has a huge regulatory effect on salt and water balance. So it helps with controlling blood pressure. But so basically why I introduced this concept of what cortisol is because it's such an important hormone to control. And it plays such a big factor in our lives. And one of the main ways for us to actually get in control of this hormone is sleep. So that is why sleep is so important to us. Let's see, let's keep going. I'm looking at the it is not for Hydroxycut. Hydroxycut is a dietary supplement that is not healthy. So please do not use Hydroxycut. And that might not even be legal in the US anymore. So thank you, C1A. So that's the first biofeedback marker we should pay attention to. The next one that we need to pay attention to is our hunger. So basically with hunger, if we're not paying attention to it and we're not prioritizing feeding our bodies when our body is calling for it, it can be something that people struggle with regulating in weight, energy, and overall performance. And that's usually because we aren't eating enough. So it always kind of has been one of those conversations when I'm working with people, when I'm telling them you need to eat more, you're not eating enough, and they think they're eating enough. But a lot of times we're making selections of foods that are causing us to spike quickly or crash quickly. And then there's also instances where we're just thinking, maybe that old myth that we explored last week of if I eat less, then I'll lose weight, which we learned is not true because your body needs fuel to function. So we look at the next biomarker, our most important biomarker to pay attention to is hunger. And then the two hormones that actually help us regulate hunger are leptin and ghrelin. Leptin is a hormone that helps decrease hunger, and it's mostly made by the fats in our body. And then ghrelin is the hormone that helps us stimulate hunger. So basically what happens is it's made mostly in the stomach, but this hormone triggers something in our brain to say you're hungry. So these two have a very sensitive balance, but they play a very big role in our performance in our day-to-day lives. So sometimes we are hungry all the time, and there are other times where we lack hunger. So logically, we think, an ideal, if we're in a dieting scenario, that it would involve higher levels of leptin, which is the hormone that decreases hunger. and lower levels of ghrelin, which is the one that increases hunger. So we think, clients will have less hunger and greater ability to handle any cravings. But long-term dieting and extreme dieting, especially if you're one of the people who's really been working hard on trying to figure out the mystery of getting into a healthier lifestyle, usually when you're doing that for too long, it causes a lack in hunger, which means it's a metabolic adaptation, which decrease both levels of the hormone in your body. So basically, a lack of hunger just indicates that you've navigated really far away from what your body's been trying to tell you in feeding yourself and giving yourself energy. So if we do this for too long, it can lead to nasty long-term consequences. And a lot of times that means messing up your hormone health in your body. So when we mess up our hormone health, it can trigger things like poor gut health, but it can also trigger things like weight gain or too much weight loss. So very important to pay attention to this biofeedback marker of hunger, because this is something that we need to pay we need to pay attention to. It basically will help us perform better throughout the day as well. So the next one I want to talk about, and well, before I go any further, are there any questions about that last slide and about what hunger is and why we need to pay attention to that biofeedback marker? Okay.
Hey, Tashara, this is Tony.
Hi.
I was just going to say, it's funny we're talking about ghrelin because it sounds like gremlin.
Oh, yeah.
And for those who saw the movie Gremlin,
You're like a little gremlin all hungry all the time.
Exactly. You're hungry all the time. So just to help everyone remember that word, just remember the word gremlin and gremlin.
That is a really good point, and I'll use a gremlin next time on my picture.
Awesome.
Thank you. So yeah, so the next thing we want to look for are understanding what our hunger cues look like. So the most common hunger cue that I think we probably all relate to is when we feel it in our throat, our stomach is gurgling, or somebody's, just saying, oh, I'm so hungry. You get to that point where you're just like, all you can think about is food. Any smell that comes your way, you're on. And I think that's where most people think that's when they know they're hungry. The next most recognized signal would probably be moodiness or mood swings, which we also know as being hangry, right? By show of hands or drop of comments, who's been hangry before? Or who's told you you need to go eat something because you're not being nice right now. So I think that'd probably be yep, exactly. Madison, Kaylee. That would be the next most recognized signal, right? But the less paid attention to signals for hunger cues typically look like brain fog and lack of concentration or focus. So most times what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are paying attention to these less paid attention to signals that are telling us that we need to feed ourselves. When we get to this most commonly known signal of the stomach and discomfort, and it's just your esophagus is kind of moving around, that is extreme hunger, and that is something that we want to avoid, because that's when we can turn into little gremlins. And when I say that, I mean myself. I can go crazy on a box of goldfish really badly. So so yeah, what we have here is basically like, how are we going to mitigate hunger, right? The first would be to recognize what your hunger cues look like before we get to the most common signal, which is just feeling like you're starving. And then the next way we want to mitigate hunger is to build a habit of having food nearby and readily accessible so you can avoid crashes and cravings. So a lot of times what happens when I'm at work is I will not have any food in my drawers. I didn't do any meal prep or have anything available to myself. So what I do is I'll go to the snack room and I'll walk around the snack table for a little bit, and maybe I'll look at the vending machine, and maybe something in there looks really satisfying, and it might be a chocolate candy bar or it might be a bag of chips. But what happens is if I go for one of those snacks, I am immediately causing a spike in my blood sugar and a big crash later. So the reason why I say is to build a habit around having food nearby and readily accessible is because it helps you avoid options that are easy, quick, and might not be the best for you in the long term. So that is one tool to mitigate your hunger. The next one would be to go about it thinking, when is my next meal? Let's just say you forgot your lunch, and you know you have to be at work for at least 5 more hours. So you getting something in your stomach is going to be a little bit harder to do, or you might feel that squeeze of, I'm getting really hungry, I'm going to get angry, I'm going to be moody. So think about when your next meal will be. If you know you're not going to eat for a while, but you have something, protein is the best option for mitigating hunger. So quick ideas for protein would be lunch meat from the deli, yogurt, eggs or egg white bites. So I think they probably have those at Starbucks also. Grabbing a quick tuna pack at the grocery store, or some beef jerky or protein bars. These are all easy options that you can keep in your desk drawer or in the fridge, the community fridge, or in the car if you need. But protein is going to be one of the best options for you to stay full and satiated before the next meal. And so I also put just here, see the food list protein options that are listed on the website. And those were some of the options I listed last week. The next way to mitigate hunger cue would be to evaluate if you just need a quick hit of energy for brain performance, or you need to do a presentation. Maybe you just need to have a happy face for a little bit, but you're not going to have to wait too long for the next meal. The best options for this would be something like fruit for energy and fiber, vegetables for fiber. Remember, fiber is something that keeps us full longer. And maybe something like rice cakes or dried fruit. So another option for quick hit of energy would be nuts and olives. So if you looked at the food list that I showed you last week, these options here are mostly on the carbohydrates food list. And then these options right here were options on the fats macronutrient list. So over time, once you vary up these snacks and you make these types of snacks available to you, you'll start to notice which ones your body responds better to. Some people don't have a preference. Their body responds well to nuts, olives, fats, carbohydrates, and other foods, they just don't sit as well, or maybe you just don't get that blast of energy that you really need. So I'd say if you're going to go about trying to control some of the hunger cravings that you're getting during the day or that you're experiencing with hunger, it's good to keep a few snacks around and just kind of experiment and play with what you like, what you can get used to keeping handy, and then kind of just paying attention within a 30-minute to 45-minute window of like, did my mood improve? Did my stomach stop making noises at me? Did my brain fog clear? Am I more focused? Start to pay attention to things like that, because you're going to learn quickly that, hey, all I needed to do was eat a little snack. So I know we had talked about last week, there's not really a good food and there's not bad food. All food is energy for us. But what a good thing about paying attention to your hunger is, and the way you feed yourself, is that you'll start to learn which foods also cause you to crash, right? So that's kind of why I added here to avoid heavy sugary snacks, maybe sweets, or quick hits of caffeine that can really spike you quickly. Because you might feel good in the moment and it might give you a little bit of satisfaction, but the crash is what might make it a little bit harder to get through the rest of the day as well. Though, if you need to eat something, go eat something. Eating something and getting your body feeling better is much better in the long run than not eating anything at all.
Hey, Tashara,
Uh-huh.
this is Tony. Before we move to the next slide, I believe we
Sure.
had Madison with their hand up, I don't know if they want to unmute.
Madison, did you have a question? No. Oh, maybe she had it up because we were asking about who's been hangry before. Yeah, so I know this is back to like, what cravings and how we satisfy them. A lot of times it's easy to go for those quick sugar fixes, caffeine fixes. But my best advices to you are to try and avoid them if you can. And a fun thing that I'd like to do when I'm working with people is to actually have them be, give themselves a week or two to try and use some of the different healthier choice snacks. But then also introduce maybe a sugary drink or maybe a caffeine drink or a sweets, and just so they can learn and see how it reacts with their own body and see if it was helpful choice or if it was a choice that they probably should avoid down the road. So the third most important biomarker is stress. And we touched a little bit on this earlier when I was talking about sleep. But the cortisol is a stress hormone. It's one we're constantly dealing with and controlling. You'd be surprised at how much, and maybe you're not surprised, but I think how much work, relationships, family life, traffic, health, lack of sleep, quality of sleep, skipping meals, they're all important to mitigate because they all contribute to our stress throughout the day. So controlling and the stress really helps improve every single part of our biofeedback. So it's important to pay attention to what your triggers are and see where we can make changes to help control your cortisol levels. So if you're constantly triggering stress, the overproduction of cortisol can have a domino effect on the rest of the hormonal production and overall performance. So the three biomarkers we want to make sure we're paying the most attention to is sleep, hunger, and stress. Those are the top three that we should not ignore, and that we really need to start working with, I think, a little bit better to help our bodies perform more optimally. Some of the tips that I give to clients when we're working on stress, what we'll do is we'll take account of what stresses us out, what ways we might react, but also ways that we might be able to help lessen the stress of it. So, for example, let's just say sleep is one of the tough stressors that we're not mastering, we're not getting through. One of the solutions I offer would be turning off your phone an hour before bed or putting it away from the bed, maybe taking the blue light off of the phone, setting a set amount of time for wind down before you actually go to sleep. It seems that a lot of times we are always on the phone up until the very last minute. We try to go to sleep, and that can be disturbing for some of us. And it really gets in the way of us getting a quality night's sleep. I'm guilty of it on occasion myself. So I know that it can be one of those distractions that is just hard to quit the habit of, but well worth it in the long run if you can master something like sleep quality. Other things that we have for work might be like, hey, what's a time of day that we can agree to shut off the email or stop looking at our work email? Or maybe there is a tool that we have to reevaluate with family life. Let's just say, I guess this is probably a I like stereotypical example, but the mother-in-law, right? Let's say mother-in-law is calling you every day at 8 p.m. You're trying to get the kids down, but you putting a boundary around like, hey, no more calls after 8 o'clock. We need you to call at 6 o'clock. that might be a way to mitigate some of the stress of family life or somebody who's constantly pulling on your attention. So what things might you be able to, set a healthy boundary? What things might you do that don't necessarily help your stress levels? I did see one contribution here. I look at my work email late night. Yeah, that one's a tough one. I think a lot of us here can constantly be plugged into work, and it definitely doesn't help us relax. Setting healthy boundaries. Yep. Any other examples we can think of, or does anyone want to share any of their tools that they use? I chat till I sleep it off. Oh yeah. Who else has any confessions or helpful tools? Awesome.
But like falling asleep with like a TV or a noise on.
Yeah, TV is a big one. Yep. Yeah. That was a big thing that I made sure with my little one I didn't do, even though he begged me to have a TV in his room. But it really helps because you can actually shut your brain off a little bit better. So these are just some of the tools.
I was gonna say something.
Yeah.
I like to write everything down so I know what I have to do every day, because I get stressed out if I think of too many things in my head. So I like to make sure I write everything down in a planner, and it really helps.
Hey, that's a really, really great tool. So writing down, maybe like spilling it all out on paper, what you need to do, so that way you don't think about it before bed. That's a great idea and strategy. So no TV in the room, light a battery operated candle, and invest in blackout curtains. Yep, invest in blackout curtains. I'm a big fan of those. Has anybody in the chat tried any aromatherapy, or need to do maybe like a sleep mask, or maybe a little white noise in the background like a fan? Those are definitely ways that have helped people get to sleep a little bit quicker. One of the actual aromatherapy things I tried for a while, and it actually works, and I should probably still do, is I would put a couple drops of lavender oil in some lotion and rub it on the bottom of my feet, and it would put me out within like an hour, maybe even 30 minutes. It was very relaxing. So that was a nice one to try. Sleep masks. And then is there anybody in the chat who has any like traditional herbs that you might use to help relax? I can't remember I'm spacing the herb that I tried, but when I was out in Arizona, they have this balm and salve that they make with some of the seeds that helped relax also, and help relax muscles also. Oh yeah, drinking Indian tea, delicious and relaxing. Absolutely. All right, well, I'm going to show you the tracker that I use with clients, but also we're going to put a link in the website for you to download a copy yourself. There can be an option to do it with Google Drive, or an option to download the Excel sheet. And so I'm going to show you how to use this biofeedback tracker. And then at the end of the series, if you fill out this tracker for 3 weeks, reach out to me and I will help you decipher different parts and ways that we can go about improving some of those things. So that is something that it's a tool that I want you to use. And if you want some free coaching around what you've been doing and what kind of improvements you can make, I would love to be able to help you with that. So let me show you the tracker here. Can everybody see it?
We still see your presentation, not the tracker yet.
Okay, let me reshare because I think I only shared one. All right. Better?
Yes, we might need a little bit of a zoom in so we can
Okay.
read a little bit easier.
So I will zoom in after I explain the big picture here. This up here is where you can edit your name. Here would be like dates, but actually you don't need to put the date here. I just put today's date here. What we would want to do is put the dates here. So that way you're making note of what day you tracked, right? So the categories, we have a lot of them up here, and feel free to fill in whichever you're most comfortable with. But let's just say we are filling in today's information from the previous night. So today's date, but we're going off the previous night. So I got 8 hours of sleep. I did strength train today. I didn't get that many steps in. So when I look at my app here, it's going to tell me I did, I think probably like, 4,000 steps. So I'm going to log that. My mood, I'm going to go with my little tracker up here. So I'm going to zoom in for you guys. Can you see? Uh-oh, it's not letting me zoom it. I do not know why it's not letting me zoom right now. Hold on. Can you all read it? Is it just a little smaller? Okay. So this one will be mood, but right above here, I have a, basically like a way for you to gauge what your mood is. So it was a positive mood, it was a neutral mood, or a 1 would be a negative. So let's just say I'm right in the middle between positive. I wasn't like so positive, but I wasn't like neutral, meh. I was right in the middle. So I'm going to put a 4. And if we look down here, it's going to say test week 1. These are giving you some targets to aim for. So obviously with mood, we want to be positive, right? We want to make sure that our sleep is helping us with our mood, and every other performance or biomarker up here is helping us as well. So I'm going to put a 4 for today. Gym performance, you know what? Admittedly, I've not been the best about getting in the gym. So I'm going to say it was a 3 because I did it. I showed up, but it wasn't my best work. So I'm going to leave it at a 3. Soreness, I am not sore from the previous day. I will say 1. My sleep quality was great. So 5, it was excellent. My energy, I had excellent energy today, though I didn't get to leave because there's a lot of snow outside. So I stayed busy inside. I'll say libido, we'll leave it at neutral right now. The reason we include libido is just, again, like I said, it's really about understanding hormonal health, which doesn't necessarily involve sex hormones. It really involves things like your human growth hormone. How can you recover? How does your gym performance help you recover? Are you eating too little? Do you need more protein in your diet? These things, all of these tell us different things about our bodies. So that's the primary reason we include the libido one. Hunger levels. So my hunger level was moderate, not too much, not too bad. And then my cravings. Admittedly, I did wait a little bit too long to eat today. So I'm going to say my cravings are about a 3. Digestion, excellent. So basically digestion, what we're looking at, excellent would be like having a regular bowel movement every day. And poor might mean something like having constipation or trouble passing a bowel movement. So you're going to have to try and understand what digestion feels good for you, and then what might not. And there also is digestion, like, oh, I ate that one burger and then I just felt really bloated, or maybe I had too much pizza and it just messed up my digestion and I didn't feel good and I was very uncomfortable. So that would be like a poor rating on your scale. But if you had no trouble and everything felt great, then you put excellent. And again, you're welcome to put a 2 or a 4, or if you're not quite in any of those poor, neutral, or excellent boxes there. So with this, what we do is we rate ourselves, fill in our information, and then what you're going to do is put a note in here, and you're going to say, last night I went out with friends, you know, I enjoyed myself. Went to bed early, but I was a little bit stressed from work. So a quick little brief on what happened in your day and what's going on with you, because that information is going to give me a little bit more information about how to help you start shifting some of these things for yourself. So these would be little notes here. So now let's just say tomorrow we're going to go through. I'm going to say I got 8 hours of sleep. Actually, let's make it 7. We'll go 7 hours. I did strength train, and let's just say I got 10,000 steps in, and then my mood, it was excellent or positive. My gym performance was excellent. I was a little bit sore, so I'll say moderately sore. And then sleep quality was great, so 5, and excellent. Energy, excellent. Libido, excellent. Hunger levels, extreme, because I got a lot of steps in and I slept, and I also weight trained, so probably going to be a little bit more hungry. And then no cravings for me, so none. And then digestion on point. Make a note, everything went smooth today. No stress at work. Good sleep. Ate well. So that would be my note for the next day. Now, if we're going to get a little bit more targeted, oh, there's the Zoom now. Does that help with the view?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. So what we'll do is when we're putting in these numbers down here, it starts, the formula that's input starts to average out all the numbers that we put in here. And then it starts to give us like, you know, are we doing our strength training? Yes. Let's just say one of these days we don't do, we'll just put a no. So it averages how much strength training we're getting for 5 days in the week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, sorry, 7 days in the week. So it's averaging our percentage there. For this one, it's averaging how many steps we get throughout the week. So same thing is happening across the board on this tracker. Mood, it's going to start telling you, you know, based on your numbers, overall, are you feeling good, or are you kind of struggling with a little bit of the with your mood? And so that'll average to a 3.86. So that might be something I'm going to say, hey, your mood numbers are a little bit low. Let's pay attention to how much you're eating and how much you're sleeping. And then we're going to go across the board and we're going to start looking at different factors like what your energy levels are. Are you working out? Are you walking? Is it causing soreness? Are you having cravings? Is the digestion working? So all of these averages over the week, these numbers will start to tell us where we truly are existing on these scales up here. And then that's going to help indicate or tell us and indicate like where we can go from there and what things we need to put a little bit more focus and emphasis on. So the more accurate and truthful you can be with your biofeedback markers and giving a little bit of a story or context as to what's going on, that's going to help me be able to give you better advice and better things to work on for the following week. So that was where I might drop a little note here and say, hey, let's just focus on getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. If you can't get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, let's work within a REM cycles sleep thing. So a lot of times I use an app to help folks figure out when their REM cycles are and start getting more full rested sleep. So these are just some of the different tools that I use to help folks with understanding what their biofeedback is telling them about their body. At this point, I'm going to stop and ask what kind of questions folks have for this tracker. Does this make sense? Do you need help clarifying some of this?
As a note, you will have to make a copy of the spreadsheet to be able to fill it in.
Yes, so if we're gonna get this up, the Excel uploaded onto the website, but there's also a link. The link is the one that's gonna say, it's pretty much gonna stop you from doing anything on it, and editing, but you can make a copy of it for yourself in a Google Drive. Basically, this tracker, we just want to make sure that the copy link, nobody else edits it, so that way other people don't have to delete anything on it. So this tracker, I'm going to zoom out now just a little bit. It goes for an average of, I have it as a Q1 and a Q2, so typically I'm working with people for about a year, and it's 3 months at a time. So this can go for a while. But again, this is just a tool for you to start using and playing with and start learning about yourself with. I would like to liken it to journaling, right? A lot of times we're taught to journal about our day or maybe how we're feeling emotionally, but we sometimes begin to miss the connection between what our emotions are telling us and how our days are going to what our bodies are telling us also. And a lot of times, if we can make that connection, we can make huge improvements in the way we feel and in the way we give our attention to ourselves. A lot of times I've heard so much feedback about, wow, I didn't really realize how much I wasn't paying attention to myself, and how much I hear from a lot of mothers how much they realized that they needed to pay a little bit more attention and give themselves and show a little bit more love to themselves by giving themselves that attention that they need for sleep, for am I feeling good? It's all about self-care, and it's all about learning how to treat yourself well and how to really put yourself into a position where saying, hey, I need to get some sleep tonight. Please respect my wishes. This is kind of something that I think I've learned for myself. It's improved my ability to love myself better, treat myself better, and also show my little one that these are the ways you take care of yourself, right? Sometimes I think I even remember, when I was younger, I think about my mom, and I think about her telling me to go to bed early, or telling me to eat breakfast, or telling me to do all these little things that you take for granted, but when you think about it, they're just the basics that you need to keep doing, even when you're little into adulthood. They're so important. You just gotta start to look at it as a way to take care of yourself better. So these little pages down here, they're Q1, Q2, but I also included a little tab for body measurements. Whether you're getting a lot of activity in or not, sometimes it actually is really nice to be able to do some body measurements for yourself, just to see if any of the improvements you're making and striving for on these little goals here make a difference in your body. And a lot of times, the first couple weeks that I work with folks, they see big changes in their body measurements just from getting better sleep alone. So these are, I think this is a tool if you would like to use. It's great because it actually shows you that the changes you're making when you're paying attention to your body work. The other way, or another tool that I like to use, if you don't like to do measurements, is to take pictures. Taking pictures of yourself weekly just to see, so you can see for yourself that you're making good progress, is really important, because sometimes we get very caught up with a number on a scale, or having to reach a certain target number that we think is going to make us happier. But there are lots of times when we just need to look at, hey, do I look better? Do I feel better? Do I just feel better? That's the most important thing. When we can say, yes, I do feel better, and yes, I feel really great about how I look, that becomes really empowering for us. So that's why I included this body measurements here. But it looks like it's pretty easy to grasp and understand how this tracker functions. What other questions do we have right now? We have about 10 minutes left. Can you still see my tracker or my screen?
We can see the tracker now.
Okay, you can see it on the Google Docs.
Yes.
Okay. So this should prompt you to make a copy. But if it doesn't, it's right here in File, make a copy, and you can save one to your own Google Drive. So there's two ways to do this. The other thing is, if you really like using Excel, you import. Oops, sorry, I think I did the wrong one. You will, how did I do this last time? I cannot remember. I think I imported or I download to Microsoft Excel. And that will allow you to input it in Excel with the codes and the formulas. Now, let's just say you just want to print it and you want to write. You can do a PDF, but it will give you limited space for your notes. And it won't do the average and include the formula here. So just be aware of that. There's a couple of different options there. But if this is something you really want to try and you're looking forward to having me do an evaluation at the end of the series, definitely reach out to me either via email or on my Instagram or Facebook, and let me know so that if you have any questions in the meantime, I can answer those for you, okay? Any other questions at this point? Awesome.
Hi, everyone. Last week, I think we also talked about foods that we were wondering about might fit into certain categories. So also open up for those types of questions as well.
Yeah. What we did a list of foods, and one of the questions I asked everybody at the end was, what types of food did you see, or what foods did you not see on the list, and which ones did you have questions about where they might fit? Again, if there's nothing coming to mind right now, again, the invite is open for you to reach out to me on social media and ask those questions as well. Like I said before, there are no stupid questions. If you have this question, I'm sure other people do as well. So I just want to make sure that you know that my door is open for helping you understand more about foods and understanding more about this biofeedback that we learned about tonight. But please do reach out. I'd love to help where I can.
What about like pozole?
Pozole is corn and hominy, so that would be a carbohydrate. But because typically it comes with meat in it, which is usually pork, that also has some protein in it as well. Pozole is a really great food to keep in your diet. It's delicious too, and especially if you put green chili in it. Yeah. Any other foods you guys have a question about? All right. Okay, well, I leave it there. Again, if something comes up later, feel free to reach out to me. Next week, we're going to talk about food and actually being at the cultural table, how to build a grocery list, how to navigate a grocery store. And yeah, I can't wait to see y'all next week. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Tashar, can we hand it back over to Joseph? I think he kind of has a little bit more of an announcement.
Sorry about that. Handing it back on over to Joseph.
That was a great presentation, Shara. Thank you. I just want to thank everyone for joining us. The IYC hopes to continue continuing fostering new relationship with Indigenous youth as we continue using our platforms to learn from one another and expanding opportunities for our Indigenous youth. We hope to learn, engage, and raise awareness to improve the health and wellness in our tribal communities and families. Please join us for the next part of the series next Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023, and then wrapping up the final part on March 1st, sorry. And please feel free to follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram handle is @NM Indigenous Youth Council for more information. And I hope you guys all have a great evening. Stay warm. It's snowing out there, so stay warm.
Thanks everyone
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Have a great night.
Bye.